All right. Welcome, everyone, to our virtual lunch hour. I'm Jillian Graber, Executive Director of Protect PT, and we have some great guests today with us. We have Ashley Funk, Deputy Director of of Mountain Watershed Association. Hi. Hi, Ashley.
Hello.
And
Hi, everyone.
you're also known as the Yakagani River Keeper, is that right?
Yep.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
All right. We also have Heaven Sensky. She is a community organizer with Center for Coalfield Justice. Say hi, Heaven.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so today we're going to talk about organizing in directly impacted communities. And we've got some really great examples for you all today. And these are people that we at Protect BT work with a lot. We work to talk to folks in communities. We've done a ton of work with Mountain Watershed Association. In fact, fun fact, Mountain Watershed Association actually helped start Protect BT. Before before everything started with our organization, they helped guide us through the process. The executive director, Bev, is I would consider one of my mentors, and we're really excited that they can come and join us today and really talk about the process of how we can organize and in directly impacted communities. So, Ashley, I'm going to have you go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So to start, I think a lot of this is going to be a conversation between all three of us because we do similar work. And I just want to kind of start with what we mean when we're saying directly impacted communities. So in our contexts, these are communities that are impacted by fossil fuel development, primarily. I know we're headed to coal development and then also natural gas. So even though people don't think about it, coal is still very active in southwestern Pennsylvania, and so that's one of the primary industries that we're doing a lot around. And I just want to note one thing about Mountain Watershed Association. So today we're going to be talking a lot about our organizing, but we also have a whole other branch of our organization where we do active restoration work and active monitoring in the field to clean up abandoned mines within our watershed, and then also we do a lot of.
There's some. I'm sorry. There's some background noise. If you can, you just mute yourself, please. Everyone, just mute.
Working from home.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Whoever started the Zoom just needs to mute Patrick.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Great. I think everyone's muted
But
now.
yeah, so we do a lot of in the field restoration work of abandoned mine sites, and we think that monitoring and getting people out in the field, taking samples, and really holding industries accountable is a really important part of our work. Um, yeah, and so I think that today we're going to focus on some of the different types of campaigns that we do. And as I say, we have, I don't know if, a range of different ones. We're going to be focusing mainly on, I think, oil and gas development, but I also want to note that within our watershed, we recently had a new coal mine open. There's a lot of threat of coal mine expansion within the area as well.
Yeah.
And we primarily serve Fayette, Westmoreland, and Somerset counties.
Yeah, I was surprised because I was listening to this webinar where they were talking about coal being the kind of, with COVID-19 being one of the most expensive ways for us to get energy, and how coal was being was kind of ramping down. But that's not the case in your area. And so can you tell us a little bit about why that is?
Yeah, because so our mines where we are, they're metallurgical coal. So that is coal that's used to make steel. So our understanding is that some of it even goes up to the Clairton Coke Works, and then kind of continues the pollution of the cycle of pollution within our area. And so even during COVID, when markets were really going down, the mines were operating 24/7. They were really just going at it. And so we've been trying to do we've been working with community members to try to install air monitoring systems We have regular meetings. Before the mine opened, we had small protests, and we had people were writing letters to editors, constantly coming together to share concerns, and we filed an appeal against the mine permit. It did go forward, but we got a number of protections against some of the impacts that happen as a result of mining development.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part of what we do. People just think that when you oppose something that you're opposing it because you just want to oppose it, and that's really not the case. We oppose things because we want to protect the community, and if the result is that we're not going to be able to stop the development, but we get protections for the community, we kind of see that as a win in some small way. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that with this case in particular, it's challenging because we didn't want the mine to go in. It's true, because it does have a number of impacts, and it's going to have lasting impacts. Like I said, we do active restoration of abandoned mine sites. Those are those orange creeks that we're so used to in southwestern Pennsylvania. So we clean those up, and in our watershed, we've seen such great improvements from our abandoned mine treatment systems. And it's just so sad to know that that legacy is going to continue down the road for generations even after me, because all mines eventually are going to cause pollution. And so we did, in terms of we got some quality of life protections that reduced the noise from the site, that kind of blocked it off and was trying to reduce the dust coming off of the site. We got more notification and from DEP about whenever they were where they were going in the mine, and kind of more communication between the company. We had protections that reduce the risk of guidance, that helps a lot, because that's one of a big impact of mining development. This is a room and pillar mine, so it's not long wall like what Heaven and the folks at Center for Coalfield Justice deal a lot with, but the risk of subsidence is still definitely there. And the mine's only been in operation for over a year, and already 3 people lost their well water.
Wow.
And that's a really big concern that we've always had. And thankfully, those people were able to get new wells drilled, but still for a period of time had to use water buffaloes to get their water. And it's not always the case that you can drill a new well. So, and again, it's only been in operation for just over a year or so. Yeah,
that's really important. And Ashley, you have some pretty interesting background, which I think is really awesome. Can you talk a little bit about how you got started in the work that you're doing?
Oh man.
Sorry.
Hey guys, I'm sorry.
So I
Echo.
There's
did you see it?
Oh, it's fixed now. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, guys.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay.
Thanks, Ann.
So I always joke that I started, not really joke, I think I started organizing when I was like 14, and I grew up in Mount Pleasant, which is about not so far from part of where we Mount Watershed. And I started doing organizing works in terms of starting recycling programs and doing litter cleanups in our town. And at that same time was really aware of some of the impacts from the industries in our area. And I grew up with a big behind our house. And we would play in it because that's what we do. And I have pictures of me as a kid just covered in coal ash. And I'm just smiling in a Barbie t-shirt. And as I started learning more about the impacts of this, I realized how that's not healthy for anyone. And shouldn't be happening, but it's definitely the story of so many people throughout southwestern Pennsylvania. So I started making connections between that and climate change. And then I worked with a group called Our Children's Trust to file a lawsuit against the state for not protecting our climate. And that lawsuit we filed, so it would have been in 2011. And then it lasted for years. Eventually, pretty much the Pennsylvania and the Department of Environmental Protection pretty much claimed that they were doing enough to address climate change, and that was at a time before they weren't even considering methane as a greenhouse gas at that time. There were still a lot of impacts that were happening as a result of natural gas development, and they weren't even really considering that within their claims of doing enough. They were really looking at coal and the fact that carbon dioxide was decreasing. They also used something called the legal theories that they used then to say that the case didn't have grounds, was actually rolled against in 2017. So in theory, if someone brought that case again, they might win. But our Children's Trust has a federal case as well that you can look up and look at more information about.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that. And I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties with the sound. This program that I'm using has this echo cancellation, and I keep checking it, it keeps unchecking it. So I really hope that we're not echoing anymore, but there was some echo in the beginning. I'll have to check into that. So please bear with us if there's any technical difficulties, and thank you guys so much for sticking with us. So please, if you have questions for Ashley or Heaven, make sure you put them in the chat. Mary's going to be posting them, and she's kind of in the background working, and she's going to have some stuff later, some links for us to put up there, so we can put them on our screen. So tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing right now, and what's going on in this picture.
Yeah, so there have been a number of pictures that went by. One was from a letter writing campaign. That was actually the last meeting we had before everyone had to go into quarantine. This meeting was actually just earlier this year as well, and this is in response to a facility we work around quite a bit. So this is Max Environmental Technologies. This is a meeting in Yukon, Pennsylvania. So this facility is actually the only RCRA Subtitle C hazardous waste facility in all of Pennsylvania, which is the highest tier of hazardous waste. And it's just right in a residential community. There are houses right up against the facility. And we got involved after community members reached out to us, concerned about the high rate of cancer in their community. And also because the landfill is looking to expand into this big section along Swickley Creek. So this was actually a community meeting where the company was discussing their expansion. And so to know, during COVID and the pandemic that we've been seeing, it's been challenging because so much of the permitting is moving forward, but we don't have easy access to a lot of the permit applications that are going in through DEP. We don't have easy access to being able to bring community members together because a lot of folks either don't really use computers as much, or they don't have access to reliable internet or reliable cell coverage. And really the best way to really build that community is through in-person meetings. So even though this was an industry meeting that they were holding, we had sign-up sheets there. We were able to the second the company said something that wasn't actually true, we were able to say, hey, that's not true. And then people start to see the other side. And it's a big concern with having hearings online because everyone's muted except when you're talking. I just took part in the EQB, the Environmental Quality Board's hearings on VOC regulation. And those types of online hearings build no sense of community, no sense of togetherness, and there's no way for us to really organize people into taking a next step together. And that's a big concern that we have beyond just access. I think that there's real concerns about the impact it can have, especially because DEP used to hold hearings in the evenings and which were much more accessible for people who were working. And now they only hold meetings when they do during the day. They used to hold informational sessions, and now they refuse to a lot of times, and they just sit there and we're just going to take your comments. All of which is, I think, further disenfranchises communities that are directly impacted. And I just want to note with this facility, because we have a bunch of residents that are so concerned and they're living there that we work with, we were notified about some discharges that were seemed really bad during the pandemic because DEP wasn't going out and taking samples. And we're pretty sure the company knew that. And we took samples that were so far in exceedance of their permits, and also things like, for the one sample that we took, strontium was 26 milligrams per liter. Arsenic was around 3 milligrams per liter. And the 3 milligrams per liter of arsenic is incredibly high and toxic. And this was going into Swickley Creek, right where they stock fish, where children were swimming. So there's just such a lack of notification about the impacts that this can have. And we told DEP about that when we took the samples weeks ago, and DEP still has not been out. So we continued sampling, and then right around the time that DEP is scheduled to go out, the discharge has stopped. So it's really challenging. I could go on about this facility. Also, the person who is their environmental manager now used to work for DEP.
Wow.
So there's like a level of interconnection between the industry and the department that is really not protecting communities.
Yeah. And actually, I just posted a link.
You're muted, Jillian.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
Well, I had some loud trucks going past. So I just posted up here the link. So Mountain Watershed and Protect PT actually wrote a letter together that I just posted here. You can find it on our website. And really talking to the points that Ashley was bringing up about just the lack of access that people have during COVID-19, and the fact that the DEP is still permitting, new mining permits and new oil and gas permits. I mean, I think that we had looked one day, and this was like a month into COVID, and found that there were like over 100 new permits that the DEP had permitted. It's crazy. So, that is all from our perspective, at least here at Protect PT, we feel like this is taking away one of our essential, places for us as residents to be able to talk with not only our elected officials, not only the agencies, but also the company that's going to be doing the work, and bringing to light those points that they don't really want the public to know about. And this is a huge part of our democracy, and so this is taking away some of our rights. It's taking away some of our democracy. So, and I think that what you were talking about too with COVID-19 and just the fact that the DEP is not going out and checking. One of the things that we tell our residents here around Penn Trafford area, and when we do meetings elsewhere, is the importance of residents as watchdogs. Because if nobody says anything to the DEP, it's not going to get reported a lot of times, because the company doesn't want to report it, even though they're required to by law. They don't report it. And I just want to say too, we just heard right before this broadcast at 11 o'clock, Josh Shapiro, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, just had a live stream, and we posted on our Facebook. But one thing that he mentioned, and Mary, if you could pop it up in the chat, please. He mentioned a couple things that I think are really important, and something that we've been saying for a long time. We feel that the DEP is not doing a good job, and which I think is the proof is, not again and again we keep seeing this. And so now the Attorney General's office actually has a hotline, because when companies were violating state and federal law again and again and again and again, DEP is supposed to refer those cases, those companies, to the Attorney General's office. citizens can't actually, send these cases to the Attorney General's office. Believe me, we've tried. And so this is really important. And so there's a hotline that you can actually call, and I'm going to have Mary pop it up in the chat for you. But the hotline is, so there's a phone number. It's 507-904-2643. Thank you, Mary. And there's also an email, so you can email. So if you're one of those resident watchdogs where either your water's being contaminated or a creek is being contaminated or something near you is happening, take pictures. Ashley and I talk about this a lot, how to document things. And actually, Mountain Watershed has a wonderful publication on their website about documenting, for instance, pipeline issues. So go to their website and check that out. I think they have a ton of really important stuff on their website, but that's one thing to teach you how to document some of these issues. We also have this on our website in Fracking in Your Neighborhood. So check out those resources and become a watchdog, because if it's happening in your neighborhood, it's happening elsewhere too. And these are things that everyone needs to be aware of. So are there more pictures you want to talk about real quick?
You can just keep going. I guess I just wanted to name, I think people are always curious about the mechanisms and some of the tactics that happen in this type of organizing work. And I think that foremost, it's slow because it's really built on relationships. And so that is what so much of community organizing is that we do, specifically in small towns and rural communities. It's really building trust. Like Adrienne Marie Brown talks about moving at the speed of trust. And that is something that is so relevant to our context. And it's really, when you have those relationships, you're able to really work with residents to come up with their knowledge, because we see people as being the experts in their own communities and they know the most. So we use their insights to build campaigns. And so a lot of times the things that we're doing is just going door to door, canvassing, and even now, because these communities are so small, it's still, people have been still able to stay in touch because they're neighbors, keeping distance from each other and everything like that. We even had some residents go around and do a petition for a permit pretty safely, because they were just going in their neighborhood and we didn't really have to interact outside of that. We do a lot of mailings because a lot of these places are pretty rural and it would be hard to canvass. So sending out letters to whole areas is really important. This is a hearing. One of the campaigns that we've been working on for quite some time is on the edge of Elizabeth Township, in Allegheny County and Westmoreland County, around like the West Newton area. And a company called Invenergy is trying to build a gas-fired power plant there right along the Youghiogheny River. And that campaign has been going on, since at least, I think, 2015. But this is a public hearing that was held in the community whenever the host township, Elizabeth Township, actually changed their zoning in order to allow the power plant to be built in a rural residential area. They changed it to light industrial with power plants as a permitted use, meaning that like you could just build a power plant and you didn't have to get any additional permits and there didn't have to be any additional hearings. And we've been trying to challenge that decision, but we've just been put on pause. But since then, community members have still engaged a lot. Right now, they're submitting letters to the editor. We just actually had a call last night. So just a small group of folks that have come together. They're getting new lawn signs made to put up. We have done, like, most of these people were here because folks were going door to door doing petitions. And then also we sent a mailing to pretty much everyone in the affected area. And even though at this hearing, there were over 200 people every single person who spoke, so they didn't want the power plant except for 2 people, and the commissioners still move forward and approve the vote. So a lot of times we see a lot of, honestly, just corruption in these small local governments that we're trying to bring light to.
Yeah, we actually have our first
and
question.
If you keep going, I think that I'm wondering if the next picture is the one that I'm thinking of. Oh no, this is also so West Newton, where the power plant is being built, is an environmental justice community, and the Allegheny County Health Department is dealing with the permit because they do the air permitting for new sources within Allegheny County. And they were required to have an environmental justice meeting because in environmental justice communities, they are entitled to early information and early access to kind of the information around the permit. And the Allegheny County Health Department is currently considering the air permit for this Invenergy power plant. Allegheny County Health Department held a meeting, and they had, I want to say, 10 people show up, and only 2 of them were from the environmental justice community.
Wow.
They said they didn't know what was wrong. They got the word out to everyone. So then we said, okay, well, we're going to have our own meeting then. And this was the turnout. And every single one of these people was from the environmental justice community. And we held it in their community because the Allegheny County Health Department held it in the neighboring community. So it's just, you have to know people. And we were able to get this turnout because we connected with some of our members who lived in West Newton. And we said, okay, how do we best get the word out? And they went door to door, let people know. Just word of mouth is so critical to spreading the word whenever there are different issues like this. So we were able to, and you can even see like the fire department was there. A bunch of people showed up to learn about the facility.
I think that really highlights the importance of grassroots organizing, like we're talking about. Had it not been for Mountain Watershed organizing to bring these people together, they would have never had access to this information, which is really critical to their community's health. We actually have our first question also. So Communities First Swickly asks, how do we get on your mailing list?
Yeah, on our website, they're mtwatershed.com. Right. There's a little, I think it says like join now, and there's a sign up for our mailing list on there.
Great.
Yeah.
And we're going to actually post the link to their website a little later, so keep an eye out for that. And so, one thing that I noticed when you were talking to Ashley is we're talking about different ways that we can connect with people. And I think that that's a really important part of the work that we do. In rural communities, it might be sending letters, it might be signs that have, a link to a website or a number to call for help. And I know you guys have like many resources on your website. Do you still have a hotline on your website?
Technically we do still have that, but we haven't promoted that as much. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But technically, most of the time when we do a mailing, we just include our phone numbers, and people call us all the time. Like after we do a mailing, I spend so many hours on the phone just talking to people. And then I find out all these people who are related to me. It's really fun. It's like, I knew your grandma. It's the beauty of organizing in a small town. Yeah. Yeah.
This work.
Go to the next picture. I think that, this is one of my favorite pictures. This is right in the town where the power plant is going to be built. And these are my favorite kinds of meetings. I think there were like 12 people in this little church. And the guys in the front are just like sharing cookies that out of the meeting. But just like the small work of getting to know folks. And this town, it's Smithdale. It's like where they actually want to build the power plant. And that town has a really rich history. And if you ever have been on the Great Allegheny Passage, it runs right through there. Nice. And they want to build a power plant right next to the Great Allegheny Passage. Wow. Right in that town. Yeah.
So I think that one thing that surprised me about this work is that you do get to know people, and it's almost like they become a part of your family. And Communities First Swickly says they have another question. I think they're talking about how do you get the mailing lists for residents, and that's actually a really important thing to talk about.
Yeah, so there's a number of ways. Sometimes people will do something called every door direct mail, to send mailings to everyone in a zip code, and you can look that up. It's a service that the post office offers. What we often do, and if you need support with us, you can let us know. There's two ways. You can actually go to most county buildings actually and ask for the registered voters and get the lists of them and get everyone's addresses that way. And you can ask for the specific municipalities, the different voting districts. But that's only going to give you registered voters. What we often do is all the counties will have tax maps. Sometimes, so like what Fayette County has it, Westmoreland County has it on their website. And if you contact the county, sometimes they will, and we'll look at a specific facility, and we'll kind of draw a radius around the facility. And depending on how big of a radius we have and how many addresses on there, we will either look at the tax map, and sometimes there are digital viewers where you can get the addresses, or we send our riverkeeper who has skills in GIS. He'll make a map, and we'll just send it to the county, and they'll give us all of the addresses. You have to pay a small fee, but that's one of the ways to get the most targeted addresses pretty easily. But most of the time, your county has all of that information. You just need to ask. And sometimes, if you don't know how to do GIS, they have a GIS department who can do it for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thank you so much for that. Communities First Wickley. And there's a couple of years ago, Mountain Watershed Association and Protect BT, Clean Air Council, and a bunch of other, actually CCJ was also involved in this. There's an organizing guide. It's called Organizing ABCs, A Guide to Protecting Schools and Communities from Shale Gas Development. And so if anyone wants a copy of that, you can just email me at jillian@protectbt.org. And it goes over a lot of those techniques that Ashley talked about. So in a little bit more depth, and give you some links and some information there. So if anyone wants a copy, I'm happy to send you out a copy. It was available online, but unfortunately, I think the website is currently down. But we printed a bunch of paper copies because we knew that might happen. So we thought ahead on that one.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
I was going to, because I want Heaven to be able to talk too, I just wanted to, if you have the next slide, I just wanted to talk about the Direct Support Fund, or this is just a hearing. Somewhere, Jillian put these pictures of me working with it. We do water sampling, that's part of it. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the Direct Support Fund kind of to close before Heaven goes. But so a lot of what we've been talking about are different tactics that people can take, and that includes making yard signs, or doing mailings, or getting addresses from your local county office. And all of these things do cost money. And we find that a lot of times residents will just scrap things together, pay for things out of their own pockets. A lot of times that can be really cumbersome, and you can't have as much as an impact as you would like. So we, since 2014, we have run the Direct Support Fund out of Mountain Watershed Association, and this is a small grants program that provides small grants for anyone organizing around shale gas or petrochemical development. And so these grants, they have ranged from $300 to $10,000, I think was the highest one that we ever gave. And it can cover a range of different things. So it can be outreach materials. It can be, sometimes people do small scale monitoring initiatives within their community that can be covered by it. We typically don't pay for attorney's fees directly, but we can help with costs of legal challenge, so filing fees and other small costs that end up being pretty cumbersome in that process. So the fund is run in a grassroots ways. We have a committee of 8 people who represent a host of different organizations all throughout the region, and they're all organizers. And so when we look at the applications, a big part of what we do too is we try to provide feedback and mentorship if a group needs it, for like how to write the application, or how to best move forward with their project. So the fund, since we're all organizers meeting every month, I should say, we look at these, we give these funds out every month. So we will say, well, this sounds like a good plan, and also if you considered this, it might work out better just from our experience. So it's a really great opportunity to get funds, and then also mentorship in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we actually also have a Communities United mentorship program, and we'll offer fiscal sponsorship as well as Mountain Watershed does too, for groups that are not 501c3s, but perhaps they are organizing and they need those funds for direct support and they want to apply for them. We can help you fill out the application, which, Mountain Watershed has done a great job in making it super easy for people to fill out that application. There's not a budget as part of that, and it's not a really cumbersome process. It's really easy. And like you said, but it's reviewed by people that have been doing the work, so they know what will work and maybe what won't work, and can give some guidance to the folks that are applying for it. So I think it's a wonderful system. It's actually how Protect PT started. We started just with a few grants before we were even a 501c3, when we were just a group of people getting together. And so some of our equipment that we used and still use to this day was bought through direct support funding. And when you want to, you want to print flyers because you want to flyer a neighborhood, or you want to do some canvassing or print some signs, that's all really important stuff, and important way to get the people to the meeting. And the way you can do that is through direct support funding. So thank you so much, Ashley. And we put the link up there for direct support funding on the screen, so you guys can check it out and apply, or call Ashley if you have questions. And we're going to hear from Kevin. So Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. Kevin is with CCJ, Center for Coalfield Justice, and she's going to talk about approach to organizing and how it works and why it works. So Kevin, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. My name is Sensky. I actually live in Washington County. I've lived here my whole life. I live on a small family farm in the rural part of Washington County, which is much of it, actually. Left home to go to college at American University in DC. Studied a lot of different social justice work. Never thought I would do environmental work, but really wanted to come home and sort of pave the way in my own community, and this was the need that was had. So I'm super grateful to be organizing in my own backyard. That's a really special thing to do, and it's rare to actually have a paid position to solve the problems that are impacting everyone you know. Most of us do this work unpaid. That's pretty clear. I was certainly organizing before I was at CCJ. Grew up through the fracking boom here in Washington County, and knew it was a problem. Went through all of the land agent stuff on our family farm. There's a pipeline that came through. We went through the concept of holding out and potentially being targeted with eminent domain and losing anyway. And so I really had personal experiences with industry, and I really try to hone that in and utilize my personal experience and understanding other folks' experiences and that sort of stuff here. So I was fortunate enough to start with CCJ about 1.5 years ago. We organize in Washington and Greene counties around fossil fuel extraction. So CCJ is a grassroots organization. Most of our employees are actually born and raised here, and have had personal experiences with industry like myself. That's really special. The organization really values investing in local leadership and building folks up and empowering and educating them in a way that allows them to advocate for themselves on their own. That's a really strong value of grassroots organizing, and certainly strong for CCJ. We really do everything we can to give folks the resources and information that they need to defend themselves, right? I don't always have to be in the room to make sure that folks have access to the resources and information they need to advocate for themselves. So, our approach is very community driven. A lot of times we're going to be convening messages and statements and understandings that represents the community, even if it doesn't necessarily represent my personal feelings, because we really feel like that's the right thing to do. And we're really driven by the idea of true organizing. So I would never go into a community and tell anybody what they're supposed to think. I would never go in and say, hey, I had this experience and this is what works, so this is what you have to do to win. We really build relationships, like Ashley was saying, and make sure that we are supporting folks in their own fight in a way that empowers them and lets them navigate it on their own, because we're all experts in our own experiences. And while I might have a specific experience about what happened in my backyard, the folks that live 2 townships over may not. And so that's really important that we're connecting them with resources and support that defends their needs and not just our own.
Nice.
And so what you're looking at here is actually in Greene County. This is coal waste. That is the size of a mountain. Greene County, I personally don't do a whole ton of organizing around coal mining. Our other organizer on staff, Nick Hood, handles Greene County, and that's where most of the coal mining is actively happening under the longwall. And I know Ashley touched base on this, but they're still actively longwall mining through Greene County. They're producing a ton of coal and a ton of waste, as you can see there. That waste that you're looking at is actually belted across the county from the largest processing plant in North America. That will just be there. They're going to cover that with sod, and there's going to be runoff, and there's a big lake nearby that's not a real lake. It's waste. And it's really disheartening, and it's in an environmental justice community. There's deep poverty in these places. Folks are working class. A lot of them work for the industry. So, it's tough. For me, I certainly organize more around oil and gas development in Washington County. I'm also from Washington County, so it's a little bit different. But I will say that I grew up 20 minutes away from the operation that you're looking at in this photo and had no idea that it was there. And I was pretty connected. Like I said, I knew what was going on in my backyard. I live 5 miles away from the Mark West processing plant. I could see gas flares from every classroom in my high school. While all of our budget cuts were impacting what classes we could take, and we could see the fracking boom happening outside of our windows that was supposed to be giving us such economic prosperity. And so, I certainly have my own feelings about the lies we were told and the misleading that happened to people in my community. And I really try to lead with grace and just understanding folks' experiences. My family benefited from gas well money. It certainly helped me to go to college and be the first in my family to graduate from college. I don't hide that. I actually find it very important that folks know that we signed the line and we didn't get what we signed up for. And so I really try to be transparent about that, because oftentimes in our communities, folks who sign leases and work for industry or worked for industry are isolated in ways that makes them feel like they can't speak out, or makes them feel like it's hypocritical to speak out if they have once taken a check. And I don't believe that. I'm a firm believer that we are working poor folks, and we took the checks because we needed them, and we didn't get what we signed up for. And so one of the things that we do often is, as an organizer, I'll help folks understand their leases. We'll help train people on sort of what questions to ask and what to do if the company knocks on their door to sign a lease. We help folks, like you guys are saying, in understanding what pictures to take and what to look for on their land and in their homes, so that they can hold the company accountable on their own, right? Like, I can't be everywhere. I can advocate for policy that might benefit my community, but I can't be on every farm watching every well operation. There's 1,500 of them right now active. And so we're doing everything we can to really educate the community on how to protect themselves and what to look out for. And then, we connect folks with water testing and education on sort of what to look for in your grass if you think there's been a spill, who to call, what to tell the DEP, to keep calling the DEP even if they don't answer, to keep records of your conversations with the folks that are working on your property, that kind of stuff. And it works. It really works. And I think what makes it really work well is I have relationships with farmers that would not support a ban on fracking right now. but they trust me, right? So it's important for me that, like, I would never tell somebody not to take a check, but what I can do is maintain a relationship with these people, right? And whenever they need help or something goes wrong, they're going to call me and they're going to tell me what's going on. And I'm going to be able to convene them with the other folks in the community that are having similar issues. And now we have a movement, right? And so it's important for at least our perspective and how we're organizing in our community that we're really meeting folks where they are, and giving them the help that they need right now, right? So for representing and organizing in a poor working class community, I can't just go around and be like, we have to ban fracking. It doesn't matter if you can't afford your taxes and you have to take this check, right? Like, that would be really wrong of me to do. And none of those folks would follow the movement. But now we have this personal relationships, right? These relationships with folks that know they can call for help, that know I'm not going to yell at them, or know I'm not going to say, oh, well, you're part of the problem, right? Because we're all existing under the same structure, and we're all fighting the same beast, even if we don't know that we are in that moment. And so, our organizing strategy is certainly meeting folks where they are and giving them the information and support that they need through the process. And we know that they trust us and know that we're trying to actively help them right here in this moment. And it works. It really does work.
Yeah.
And so what that looks like for me is sort of showing up at township meetings, tracking permits, and making sure that people in different communities know that there's going to be a vote on a well pad that's going across the street from their house, right? We're finding right now, down the line, 10 years into this, that they're actually putting well pads in places where people don't have their lease rights. So they don't even know that the well pad is coming until it's too late. And so we utilize text banking. We are able to text every number in a given zip code, and let folks know that hearings are happening. We help people prepare comments and understand what process and how this works. We don't do a ton of political work because we're a 501c3, but we do a lot of voter education. We make sure folks know where the candidates stand on different issues. So I'm all over the place. I certainly can't be everywhere, but I'm really confident. Like, I have a list of folks in every township in the community, and I make sure that they know what's going on as much as I can. And it works. It certainly works, and we're moving quickly.
So a couple things that you said, Heaven, that I want to kind of reiterate, and I think you said them so wonderfully. So first, I think we kind of have a similar approach where we try to empower people to advocate for themselves, because it's certainly not, you advocating for somebody is not the same as them advocating for themselves. So giving them the tools to do that, I think it also makes them feel like they have power that has been taken away from them. So I think that that's really important. And then I love what you said about, just because you've signed a lease does not mean you've signed away your rights, and we tell people that all the time. Just because you sign a lease and you're benefiting does not mean that you have signed away your rights, and you have the right to have the enjoyment of your property. You have the right to clean water. You have the right to clean air, and it is the company's obligation to honor that. And that's just many times, unfortunately, not what's happening. So that's where we kind of have to step in and educate folks and let them know what they could expect. We always tell people, make sure you talk to a lawyer before you sign, and make sure you know what your rights are. So it's great that you guys are doing that work to talk to folks who maybe are thinking about signing leases and just don't know, what all that paperwork means. We do have a question from Jay. He wants to know, he says, I know a bunch of people in Washington County who are disconnected from the fight. Their lives center around Pittsburgh. What are ways for them to dip their toes in this battle?
That's a great question. So in other words, how can they help? Is that what he's asking? So I would say the best way right now is to get on our mailing list. There's lots of things that we could use volunteers for. We need folks to help us phone bank and inform people what's going on when it's happening. I can't speak to what you can do right now in this moment besides, get on our list and stay updated and stay aware of what's going on. Show up at your local township meetings, let them know that you're watching and what's, and you're going to be aware when range knocks on the door. You could certainly email your local township supervisors and say, hey, I have concerns about the recent Attorney General investigation that pleaded no contest to poisoning the waters of the Commonwealth. You can tell them ahead of time. You can certainly contact me and say, hey, what does my township have in their oil and gas ordinance? Does it need to be updated? Unfortunately, we know that industry backs every elected official almost in the whole county. And so a lot of these ordinances are outdated and representative of what industry wants. And what that means is whenever the company submits an application under an existing ordinance, if they meet the requirements, it's pretty much impossible for the township to not give them that application without going to court. Yeah. And setting an unprecedented legal precedent around these things. So you can certainly reach out to me and email me. I'll make sure that I send that into the chat as well, just to find out, where does your township stand? Do you need to start going to meetings and saying, hey, I want you to open up this oil and gas ordinance and give us better setbacks? Unfortunately, right now, most of the ordinances in the county and in the surrounding region are the absolute bare minimum of what the state requires them to do in terms of safety. The final permitting process goes through the township. It's called a conditional use permit. The township can negotiate with the company. That's the bottom line is, the township has the power to negotiate with these companies in a way that you don't as an individual leaseholder. And what I sort of mentioned before too, is we're finding down the line here that, especially as we see more housing plans pop up and things like that, people that live here don't have their gas rights. And if they don't have their gas rights, Range is not required to correspond with them in any way until they have the permit, and they have to tell them that they live within 3,000 feet of the operation. Yeah. And by then it's too late. So I would say, if you need help finding out if you own your rights, give me a call. If you're interested in where your township stands on their ordinance, give me a call. I'm happy to support anyone that wants to organize locally, certainly within Washington County, of course, and other areas if you need support of what you're facing and what needs to change to protect your community and protect your backyard.
Yeah, and I think you highlight a really important point that by the time the community knows that this is happening, many times it's too late for them to have a voice in it. So it's important that, that's kind of happened with us, with the first well pad. It wasn't until Mountain Watershed Association, sent letters to our community letting us know that this was happening. We had no idea. And we were lucky enough to kind of act really quickly. But there were a couple more questions. So Jay asked, especially people who live in Washington who aren't directly impacted. I think that there are probably people that are not impacted by fracking just right next door, but all of us are impacted in some way, whether it's the water that's being contaminated, whether it's the air that's being contaminated. Air and water know no boundaries. They don't know municipal boundaries. They don't follow municipal boundaries. Water will follow the path of least resistance. And so it's important to know that there are so many other issues. A couple weeks ago we had John Stoles on talking about leachate and talking about waste in landfills. I know that that's actually something that Mountain Watershed and Protect PT worked on together, writing a letter about the Westmoreland Sanitary Landfill, and they're working on another permit as well for a max environmental site. And there's one in Washington County as well. So just, there's so much stuff out there that people are unaware of.
I would say that if you don't have a well pad in your backyard and you feel like you're not impacted, to give me a call, because you certainly are impacted, and it's not your fault for not knowing.
Right.
The one thing the industry thrives off of is sponsoring half the newspaper and limiting. I can't send an LTE into the Observer Reporter. I've tried; they don't really run them. It's hard to get access to real information. I can tell you right now that I live in North Strabane Township. There are several ranged resources wells within a half mile of my home. They all have violations. And the last conditional use permit hearing I went to for the township, I presented the board with the lists of their violations, and none of them even knew that they were violating. None of them knew how to access that information. And so what I can do is I can help you all, learn how to navigate Frac Tracker, figure out how to find out if there have been spills in your area, if there have been air violations within a mile of your home. There are all types of ways that we're all impacted. And like I said, part of my job is helping people find out how they are impacted. And I can share that, like I said, I mean, even the folks that are making decisions on granting these applications don't know how to access this information. And it's set up that way, right? Like, it is beneficial to industry that these things aren't publicized. I would love, my fever dream of organizing is raising enough money to run every violation every time it happens in the local newspaper, just like a public notice is. We don't have that right now. You know, and we also know that even the violations that are listed by the DEP are just listed because the DEP happened to step foot on the site on that particular day in the lifetime of an operation. And so I can share that, you know, whenever we give people this information, they're very angry. It's not like people know what's going on. And so knowledge is really power in this situation. And I'm happy to intake any questions that folks have in accessing that information.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely been in meetings where, like, this is the first time a community member is hearing about this, and they actually get angry at me because I'm telling them. And by the time the conversation ends, they're like, we're really sorry for being mad at you and yelling at you. And it's like, well, you know what? I'm angry too. You know, I'm just giving you the information. We have another question. Does CCJ work only in Washington County? And this is from Communities First Swickley. Thank you so much for the great questions, guys.
Excuse my dog. CCJ serves Washington and Greene counties, but we also are happy. I'll get on a call with anyone if you have questions about how we organize or how you can build power in your own community as well. For my own capacity, though, you know, I serve Washington County. Our other organizer serves Greene County.
Great, thanks. And yeah, I mean, I think that you know, folks can find, and I think the Environmental Health Project has a list somewhere where if you want to organize in you know, different areas, who's doing that work, it's important before you you know, go trying to you know, to do things on your own. See who's out there that can help you, because it'll be a lot less struggle. Ashley, do you have something to add?
No, I was just laughing because my dog started barking whenever it was. But I agree with everything that's been saying. And we do a lot of the similar work, and we focus on Westmoreland and Fayette and Somerset County. So if anyone is interested in having that same type of support that might be closer to us, feel free to reach out. But we also, like Heaven said, we definitely talk to folks outside of that area as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if you have the ability to go back to the last photo.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's actually an image. You know, Washington County is the home of the focus of the cancer, Ewing sarcoma cancer crisis that's happening right now. I'm actually a graduate of Canada High School. Several of my friends have passed from Ewing's and are actively fighting it. This is us in Harrisburg, outside of Governor Wolf's office. We organized a bus trip for local families. We took them to Harrisburg. We tried to convene a meeting with Governor Wolf and didn't get it. So we stood outside his office, and these women and these mothers and fathers sobbed outside of his office until he came out. This is us when he did come out. As you can see our faces, like, hello, nice to see you. Within a few days, we got a commitment from the Department of Health that they would be doing an investigation around oil and gas health impacts. We don't know what the oversight is going to be or whether or not they're going to look at the waste stream. If they do not look at the waste stream of oil and gas health impacts, and they're just going to be looking at wellheads, and it totally disregards all the Ewing sarcoma cases in Westmoreland County and the places that Ashley is organizing as well, because they're accepting waste, but they don't have wellheads. And so we have a coalition of families and impacted folks right here in Washington and Greene County and Westmoreland. Ashley and I work very closely together in organizing around this issue. And so I just wanted to share that, you know, that's one of the things we're working on, is educating the public on the risk, how they could be exposed. And unfortunately, in doing so, there's a lot of grief, you know, like, people are grieving when we give them the information that they may be being poisoned. And unfortunately, right now, we can't give them a solution because our only solution is people power. So we can use all the help we can get. We can use every voice. We can use every letter, every email, every signature on a petition. We need people. That's the only way we're going to impact this, because as it stands, you know, Ashley and I are out here knocking doors and giving people, you know, results of testing that shows that their children are being exposed to radioactive material. And we have no real solution besides banding together and moving forward with a movement. So we could really use help. I don't know if Ashley wants to ping in on that too.
I just wanted to say we're exploring a monitoring initiative, like a community monitoring initiative that people can do as like residents themselves and be little residents and be like resident scientists to look at some of these issues. And we might, and hopefully we're going to be starting that in the fall. So definitely, if you're interested in that, get in contact with us so we can loop you in.
That's great, guys. And yeah, if you guys know about anything about the governor pledging that money to conduct those studies, it's because of folks like Kevin and Ashley and all the work that they've done. That is that's the result of their work. So we really appreciate it. And I'd like to know personally more about the monitoring, because we do a lot of monitoring as well, and we're working on a mobile app where people can report different things. We're working on that right now, and hopefully we'll be able to roll it out in the fall. But collaborations like these are really important, and the three of us work together on certain projects, and it's important to know who your allies are, and these guys are definitely allies. And if you'll go ahead to the next screen, we're at 1:00. We have a couple more things that I want to talk about. I know that this is Veronica. Thank you. Thanks, Ann. Sorry, we didn't get to all the pictures. Go ahead, Ann. Thank you. Really quick before we get off, because it is 1:00. One of the reasons why we can do the work we can do is because we have folks that are members with member organizations like Protect BT, like Mountain Watershed Association. I'm not sure if CCJ is a membership organization. Thank you. So become members of all three organizations. If you become a member with us before June 30th, which is just next week, we had some folks donate these items. Patagonia donated a bag, and we have a tablet and an Amazon Echo to give away as prizes for for some of those donors. So please donate to protectpt.org/membership, and we post the links to both of the websites for CCJ and Mountain Watershed Association. So go to their websites as well and become members of their organizations, because a lot of times that's how we can get the legal standing to help community members fight cases in their community. And we'll go ahead to the next screen. So every Thursday at noon, we're going to be here, and we're going to continue to be here because we have some wonderful guests coming up soon, and we're really excited to be able to bring you guys this material. Go ahead to the next screen, and thank you so much. And so we want to hear from you too. We've got a survey, bit.ly/PPT lunch hour. So come take our survey. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what content you want to see in the future. And if you go to the next screen, Anne, thank you so much. Next week, we've got a really wonderful group of interns. I cannot stress enough how amazing these interns are. I can't believe we found them. So we're going to talk to a lot of our interns about the work they've been doing in the community here. Even during COVID-19, they've been deploying our air monitors and our noise monitors. They've been mapping out windrows for us to comment on the Westmoreland sanitary landfill, and they've done some really amazing work. So we're going to talk to them next week, and then the week after we actually have Maya from the Delaware Riverkeeper Network. We're going to have her on talking about the Green Amendment. So please stick with us, subscribe to Protect PT, and thank you so much for joining us, guys. Thank you, Heaven. Thank you, Ashley. You guys are awesome, and I feel really lucky to be in the presence of organizing with you. So thanks so much for the work you do.
Thanks, Jillian.
All
Thanks,
right,
everyone.
bye, guys. Have a good week.
Bye.
All right, bye.